Alright, welcome. Let's open our box. Inside, here's a card that tells you everything that's inside the kit. So we have one handmade paper mache bird base, two paintbrushes, some string to hang your pudgy masterpiece, one how-to zine with a QR code, obviously you know, takes you to this video, perfect amount of paint, and then one free pudgy bird sticker. We've got the zine, cute little containers of paint. For the goldfinch, you're going to need black, white, orange, and yellow. Don't worry, this will be just enough paint. You'll probably have some left over. I've got two paintbrushes. One that is for covering wider areas, it's a little bigger, and then one that has a finer tip here, and that's for some of those finer details. Some string, of course, to hang your bird when you're finished painting. And then your paper mache bird base, handmade by me. And it is, roughly approximately the appropriate size and shape of an American goldfinch. And you know which side is the top and which side is the bottom because the top has this eye hook here, and that's what you're going to tie your string to in the end so you can hang your bird from wherever you like. First, we're going to begin with the yellow paint. So open it up. You see you have plenty of paint in here. I'm going to start with this wider brush, and we're going to paint all the areas of the bird that are yellow. So you can follow along as I do this, or you can look in your zine, and it shows you all the places where the bird is yellow. Or you can look at a picture of a real goldfinch, whatever you prefer. Try to make it pretty symmetrical. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I'm going to get a nice amount of yellow down to about right above its rump. I'll leave its beak white. That will ultimately be orange. I'm going to paint to about here on your bird. Okay. Alright, so I added a second coat, and you can tell it's a bit more opaque. You'll probably be able to tell a little bit better on your own bird. But yeah, I added a second coat of yellow, and then I went ahead and rinsed and dried my brush. So I'm going to use the same brush for the black. The black comes next. So I close up my yellow paint, and as you can see, you have lots left over. I'm going to put that off to the side, and yeah, then we'll get started on the black. Also, another thing you'll notice is that I accidentally got a little bit of yellow paint down here. See if I made any other little errors. I also forgot to mention that I added a bit more yellow here. I want the yellow to come flush with the body and the wing. Where the body and the wing come together, that's where you want the yellow to go. And then you don't want it to totally cover all the way up to the tail. There's going to be some white here, so you want to leave this blank. Alright, so now we're on the black sections. So you can refer to step 2 in your zine. And something that you want to be mindful of is that there are white spots on the wing. So, on the wings and tail actually. So you just want to make sure that you're leaving some areas white. And it's okay if you get some black in there. The white is thick enough, the white paint is thick enough that you'll be able to cover it. ultimately, so don't stress if you get some black in the white areas or if you make a mistake. Just want to make sure that you let your black dry completely before you add any white. And we'll start with painting the crest. So this is the top, of course, this is the top of the bird, and this is the crest, the top of its head, and the black is going to go to the base of the beak. And you can see how I'm doing this here. I'm sort of arching the black up because the eye is going to go right in here in that arch. And then the black comes together, crest comes together, and is sort of squared off. I'm going to start painting the wings. So we've got some areas here, right below this yellow, that are going to remain white. So I'm going to do like little scallops here. So we're actually going to we're going to make several circles here that sort of follow this arc. They get farther apart as they move up the wing. And then we're going to do the same thing here along the edge of the wing. And these are going to get progressively smaller as they move along. And then we're not going to add white all the way to the tip, but going to stop about right here. And this will be the smallest one. Okay, now next I'm going to switch back to my other brush because I'm just going to fill in all of this here. So yeah, we're just going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and I will see you when we finish that. And yeah, that looks pretty good. I want to make sure, just be aware, that the black is coming all the way to this line between where the body of the bird and the wing meet. Lovely. All right. I think next, let's move on to the tail feathers. All right, so next we are going to start on the tail feathers. And first things first, we are going to paint a triangle shape here. From here to here. I'm going to connect it from the wings into a point in the center of the tail feathers. I'm going to try to get this to look as smooth as possible. Okay, looks good. Next, we're going to paint the tail. I'm going to use the smaller brush again for some finer details. So again, follow along the video, follow along with your zine. And we are going to make a series of teardrop shapes. And then, oops, it's all right. Start here again. Actually, no. Keep moving this direction. Now getting progressively larger on the other side. Okay, so we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. Next, I'll just keep using this brush. I'm going to fill in all of the tail feathers except for the insides of these. I'm going to leave those white. And see, I'm covering up that accident of that yellow. Painting the edge. All right, so that looks pretty dang good. Next step is going to be to let this dry completely, and then we'll move over to the other side and finish the wings and the tail. All right, now that we've let that dry, we're going to move on to the bottom side. I'm going to do like just like you did on the top of the wing, several scallops here. And then down here along the bottom edge of this wing, we're going to do just like we did on the other side and add these circles along the edge. Then you're just going to fill in all of this area here with black paint. I'm actually going to use my other brush to do that. All right, so fill that in, and then we'll move on to the other wing. Okay, now I've filled in this entirely, and I accidentally covered up one of these white dots here. I'm going to try to fill it in with some white in a little while. No big deal. All right, now we're going to move on to this wing, do the same thing that we did before. Oh, and yet again, I'm going to use my smaller brush for these details. So I'm just going to make these scallops. Lovely. And then just around some, make sure my hands aren't, no paint on my fingers. Now we're going to add these white dots at the bottom here. Okay. Going to fill all of this in, then move on to the tail. All right, next we're going to do something very similar like we did on the other side with the tail. So we're going to start off with that triangular shape here and here. And again, round off those edges. All right. And then we'll take our brush. We're going to paint around the edge of the tail feathers. And we're going to leave the center white. Here we go. Yeah, that looks really cute. And that is the bottom side of your bird. And we paint the black. Fantastic. Now we're going to move on to the white. All right, so next step is to paint all of the white areas. Really, they're like pretty deeply white, so you might not need to go over them too much, but I do like to go in and clean up these areas and just make sure the lines are really nice and crisp. And then, you know, some spaces like I accidentally covered up one of these white spots here. I'm gonna go fill that back in. I'm also using my, that is just a little too much paint. I'm using my finer details brush for this part, and yeah, and I've also made sure that the black paint is totally dry. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that, and I will touch base in just a few minutes. Alright, so as you can see, I cleaned up a lot of these lines. I filled in these dots, I replaced that one, and then I just made it overall a little more symmetrical. I think it looks pretty good, so I'm ready to move on to the beak. Okay, so I rinsed my brushes, opening up my orange paint. My bird is dry, and I'm ready to paint the beak. Alright, so the final step here is to paint the eyes. We're going to open up our black paint again, and we're going to be using our details brush, which I've just rinsed and dried. And I really like to go for like a super big eye, a round and cute eye. So it's going to go about right here, right in the center of this arch here of the crest. So I'm going to put a dot where it's going to go, okay? And then I'm going to just try my best to make it as round as possible. Yeah, maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, I think that's a good size for me. All right, next I need to rinse my brush because I'm going to paint the highlights in the eyes, which really bring the bird to life, and I highly recommend adding that touch. So I'm going to rinse my brush, and then we'll add the highlight, and then you do the other eye. So I'm going to open up my white paint again. And I'm just going to get a teensy little bit on the very tip of my brush. And again, we're using the details brush, smaller of the two brushes. And we are going to add the highlight into the eye. I'm going to do one there. And I'm going to get a little bit of this paint off. Just get the tiniest amount. And I'm going to add one more really small one. So we've got one big highlight and one tiny highlight. Make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, that looks really good. So you're going to do the same thing on the other side and try to make it as symmetrical as you can. Okay, so I've added both eyes and I filled in all the white spots. I think the only thing left for me to do is to just take a look around and see if there's anything that I want to change or touch up. I noticed there's some spots on the belly here that I'd like to touch up, and then this edge of the wing I want to fill in with yellow so it matches the other side. But after that, I'd say it's probably finished. Alright, so I've touched up all of the yellow. I feel really good about where it's at. Next step is to take your clear string here, and you're going to cut it to the desired length, and you're going to tie it in a loop around this eye hook. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and then show you what it looks like. Alright, so you can see I've looped it through the eye hook there. You can see it really good against the black. And your bird is ready to hang. Well, I hope you love your bird. Thanks so much for supporting my small bird business. And please leave a review on my Etsy page, and don't forget to submit a photo of your goldfinch. I would absolutely love to see it. Thanks.